Hello everyone and welcome to day 12 of Java coding, or processing now. Today we're going to be working on adding menu interfaces and the score system. And in the future, I guess all we're going to be working on left is details and little image, adding in images and small things like that. So let's get right into it. And before I work on anything, I actually wanted to try. I realized that the game was actually way too difficult, and I didn't really like the settings. So I'm gonna edit those a little bit, and I will show you guys the effects. And I'm back. So I realized, wow, I am really bad at the game. So a couple things I changed, or at least I went over, or I considered changing, was hey, how many times do I want to output the pipes, right? At first I was at every 50 frames, but I changed it to every 100 frames just to keep it smoother for me, because I'm really bad at the game again. Another thing I changed, or I consider changing, I changed the width and height of the bird to 5 and 5 because I basically doubled the size of the screen here, size 200 and size 200. I wanted to increase the size of the bird a little bit just to make it more visible. I kept the velocity and the gravity the same. I kept the lift the same, I think, as well. -5 and 0.2. I felt like those were just smooth gravity and jumping heights. What I did change the most was I doubled the size of the pipes, because because I doubled the size of the screen. I thought it would just look more consistent. And another thing is, this was, I think, at 25 earlier. That was way too difficult for my taste, right? You could change this yourself. You can mess with these settings however you want. But I changed mine to 75. I tripled it because it just makes it a lot easier for me. And basically, this is the game now. You can see how easy it is. You can definitely, when you're making this, if you are making this, change the settings so that it's a lot smoother on your part, or maybe more challenging on your part, because I was never good at this game. But here it is in its current state. It's just easier for me to make keep track of score and stuff. So now that the settings are done, let's finally get into the core of the video, adding in the menu. So how do we do that? Well, how about this? And this is the process I usually go through. First, I'm gonna clear out this in 3, 2, 1. Okay, now that it's clean, let's go over this. So how can I change between different, like, completely different scenes? And I call them scenes because each scene will have a new scene in it. So we can store that in a variable, an integer variable. And basically, at each index, let's say, let's call this variable scene, right? So we declare our integer variable scene. We'll start it at 0, right? So when it's 0, right, at the beginning of the game, we're gonna store that. We're gonna say if it's 0, we're gonna display all this stuff, and if it's 1, we're gonna display all this stuff. So it's just storing what scene the game is currently on inside of this variable. And I'll instead of me drawing it with these silly squiggles, I will show you guys what I mean. So let's hop into the code. Again, we're gonna create a new variable called scene. We're gonna start it off at 0. Equals 0, right? Now all this stuff that has to do with the game, we're gonna put it inside of an if and else statement, right? And again, the if and else statement just checks something. So we're gonna check, hey, is scene equal to 0? And you have to use double equal sign when you're comparing numbers. We'll do this. If scene right, equals 1, then we'll do all of this stuff. So because all this stuff is, excuse me, a part of the game, if you select everything, you press tab, it'll indent everything by 1 tab. So that just makes things cleaner. Excuse me. So all this stuff inside of scene 1 will store the game properties, right? The actual Flappy Bird. And in scene 0 we'll store menu elements. And I've already showed you guys how we can display text and such. And also I've showed you guys how we can detect key presses. We keep background here because we're not going to change the color of the background. So we're going to start by saying fill 000. We're going to draw everything, our text and stuff, in black. We're going to say text size. We're going to set that at maybe 32 this time because we doubled everything. We're going to say text align, which means, hey, how do we want to draw our text? Do we want to center it in the middle of the coordinate or on the left of the coordinate? And then we're going to simply text, we're going to call this coding bird. Coding bird. Yes, that's our game. Width divided by 2, height divided by 2. And that's glorious. The reason we've been typing width divided by 2 and height divided by 2 this entire time instead of writing like 50 and 50 because that's the actual height of the and width of the screen, it's because if we ever change the height or width of the screen, this code will change for us. Or yeah, our code is dynamic. And we're going to say one more thing. Press the space bar to begin. We're going to say width divided by, well, not width divided by height. Width divided by 2, height divided by 2 plus 50. That just displays it 50 pixels below the title. So we have that now. One more thing. I just want to configure this and increase the size of the game over sign as well. So now we're going to have to edit our key presses. This only works when the game is started. So we should add an if statement inside of it. We're going to say, hey, if scene equals 0, right? And they press the space bar. What we want to do is the scene to change when they're on the menu, right? When scene equals 0 and they're on the menu sign, we want when they press the spacebar, we want the game to change into scene 1. Then, otherwise, if scene equals 1 and not game over, then we can have them jump. So that deals with that. Now our game works. Now the problem is when they hit game over, they have no way to get back to the menu. So we're going to add one more button press, right? Else if key equals backspace, and this is again a special value that processing knows what the value is, and this helps us store what the value of backspace is. It stores a special number inside of backspace, and if you check whether or not the key is that backspace, it'll do something. So if the key equals backspace, then scene, well, actually what we're doing is, hey, we're starting the game over again. And the best way to do that is actually to use these values right here. Whoa. And if you actually just use these values here, what we put in setup, which is the setup that started the game, whenever we press backspace, it'll start the game over again. And one thing I forgot to do here this entire time, as I forgot to set our counter to 0. Why did the code work? Well, when we say int counter, our computer actually, in processing, actually assigns the value to 0 already. But we want to make sure that it's explicit. And what explicit means is we want to make sure it's very clear. We specifically say, exactly say, we want the counter to start over. And we want the counter to start over just because we don't want little lags, or we don't want it to to basically, you just want it, you want everything to reset when you press backspace. And so the last thing we have to do is we have to say, hey, when it hits game over, we also want to tell them how to get back to the menu. Press backspace to return to menu. Width divided by 2, height divided by 2 plus 50. So, let's check if this works. Man, that is too big. Here, let's not have text size be 32. Let's keep it at 16. There's nothing wrong with 16. Oh no. Okay. That's not very nice. What we can do instead is give these two values different text sizes. Instead of text size, being 16 for both, we change it halfway. We say for text size will be 16. We print this out, and then text size will be 8, and print that out. And I'm gonna add that in down here as well. I'm like making little changes midway. I'm sorry. Okay, so let's check this out. All right, that's kind of small, but you guys can hopefully read it. Press spacebar to begin. Now we play. Now we lose, and press backspace to get return to menu. Now the last thing we have to implement is the score. And now actually I will do that in the next video. And the next video I will also show you how to add in images instead. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.